Today, we're diving into a classic Buddhist parable. It's a really clever story within a story that gets right to the heart of a timeless question. What are the roots of betrayal and malice? And it all kicks off with a truly shocking question. I mean, you have to wonder, how could someone so close to the Buddha, his very own cousin, actually try to murder him? This question, right here, sets the stage for a pretty profound lesson. So this cousin, his name was Devadatta. Now, he'd followed the Buddha and even joined his order of monks, but he could just never reach that same level of enlightenment. And over time, his admiration, well, it soured. It curdled into this really bitter and dangerous jealousy. And look, Devadatta's malice wasn't just some passing bad mood. It led to 3 distinct assassination plots. First, he hired a professional archer to ambush the Buddha. When that failed, he unleashed a notoriously violent elephant, Nalagiri, hoping it would trample him. And in a final, pretty desperate move, he climbed a cliff and rolled a massive boulder right down at him. You can just imagine the vibe among the Buddha's followers, right? His monks are all gathered together, and they're just completely bewildered. They're talking amongst themselves, trying to figure out how a family member, someone who'd received all this wisdom and guidance, could be so treacherous, so incredibly ungrateful. It was a betrayal that just shook them to their core. So the Buddha, overhearing all of this confusion, he walks over to them, and he tells them that to really get what Devadatta is doing now, in the present, they need to look to the distant past. The answer, he says, isn't here and now. And what's really interesting is how direct the Buddha is here. He doesn't just try to soothe his monks. He gives them a straight-up explanation. He's saying that Devadatta's behavior isn't some new development, but a deep, recurring pattern that's been going on for lifetimes. Now, to really drive this point home, the Buddha uses this incredible teaching tool, a Jataka tale. Basically, Jatakas are stories from his own previous lives, and each one is told to unpack a specific moral lesson. So we're about to hear the story that holds the key to this whole mess. All right, so the story takes us to an ancient forest in a place called Kasai, a place that has a serious life-or-death problem. So picture this, a beautiful, vibrant forest, just teeming with all kinds of creatures. But for all its beauty, it had this one fatal flaw. There was only one source of water, a single, super deep well with really steep sides. The animals could see the water that would save their lives, but they couldn't get to it. They were literally dying of thirst. But then, an act of compassion. A group of woodcutters, seeing all this suffering, decided they had to do something. They built a long wooden trough right next to the well and started a tradition. Every time they passed through, they would painstakingly draw water and fill it up for the animals of the forest. So time goes by, and one day, a lone traveler, a virtuous Brahmin, is making his way through the forest. He gets to the well and finds the trough is almost completely dry, and the animals are waiting around just desperate. And this is where we meet the central characters of the parable, the ones who are about to put all of this kindness to the ultimate test. A whole troop of monkeys. So, the monkeys see the Brahmin, and instead of just, waiting patiently, they put on a whole performance. They act all weak and pathetic and desperately thirsty, anything to get the man's sympathy and make sure they're the first ones to get a drink. And well, it works like a charm. The Brahmin's heart just fills with pity, and he gets to work. And he doesn't just give them a little bit, he toils away and fills that entire long trough right to the brim. The second he's done, the monkeys just swarm the thing. But their behavior is just shocking. First, they drink all they want, okay, but then they start splashing the precious water everywhere, jumping in and out of the trough. Then they get aggressive, blocking the other, weaker animals from getting even a single drop. And finally, their cruelty gets personal. They decide to torment the very guy who just saved their lives. And this, right here, is the absolute core of the parable. The Brahmin is resting under a tree, and he's confronted by the lead monkey, who says something truly chilling. This is the whole point of the tale. This is our nature. This is who we are. We're going to repay your help by defiling you. It's just this raw admission of an inherently malicious nature. So how does the Brahmin react to this ultimate act of ingratitude? You'd think he'd be angry, right? Or want revenge? Nope. He just understood. He recognized that this was their unchangeable nature, and he didn't take it personally. He just got up and continued on his journey. So, with the parable finished, the Buddha brings it all back home, connecting all the dots between this ancient story and the current crisis with his cousin, Devadatta. And here is the big reveal. The Buddha explains that the leader of those ungrateful monkeys in that past life was none other than Devadatta, and the kind, compassionate Brahman who helped them anyway, well, that was a past incarnation of the Buddha himself. The pattern was just repeating. So the crucial takeaway is this. The parable is teaching that some malicious natures are so deeply ingrained that they're pretty much unchangeable. And because of that, doing something kind while expecting gratitude in return, it's just futile. The kindness has to be done for its own sake with a clear understanding of who you're dealing with. This leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about. This ancient story warns of an ingratitude so deep it seems impossible to change. The Brahman's response wasn't anger. It was understanding and detachment. So it asks us, when we encounter a similar kind of deep-seated malice or betrayal in our own lives, how do we respond?